All right, here's an interesting story from the New York Post. It says the lead singer of the rock band Life of Agony is detransitioning more than a decade after coming out as transgender. Keith Caputo, 50, revealed that he'll be living a life as a male again, citing his gender dysphoria has been cured and announcing he's already started the process. He said in a video, surgery has been booked to remove my fake breasts. I'll be lovingly living in my divine male self. Caputo was born Keith in December 1973 and began identifying as Mina in 2008. The musician publicly came out as transgender in 2011. He posted the announcement in response to his followers who began leaving comments about his appearance and claiming he looked like a man. And he confirmed that he is, he was always a man, but he said he's off hormones and he's going to get the surgery to try to reverse what has been done to him. Now, I've never heard of this band before. That doesn't really matter. The point isn't that this guy is super famous. I don't think he is. But he is still part of the kind of anti-gender ideology avalanche that's happening right now. And as more and more people come out against it. And he had some words to say, not just about his own experience, but also about how kids are getting wrapped up in this. And let's watch a clip of that.
Now suddenly I'm anti-trans because I absolutely refuse to buy into the psychotic narrative that children need hormones and irreversible surgeries. That's the furthest thing from care in my eyes. And I'm going to prove it to everyone. I got about 60 books that I've collected over the years before I came out. It took me almost 30 years to come out. I went to 3 years of gender therapy before any hormone was administered in my body. Now these days people are just taking their little ones, little spirits. Let me just tell you this, man. You're robbing the right for your child when he or she grows up, when your child grows up, if you bring your child and put them on puberty blockers and irreversible surgeries and all this that's going on in this psychotic world, you are literally stripping them their rights, their adult rights to make decisions for themselves. No child could consent. And I'm just using as one example. Now, my one friend's child who wanted to be a boy is back to being a girl. She started playing drums again. She's totally a tomboy. She's in a softball league. Now just imagine bringing your little kid to and incorporating these irreparable changes in their life, these irreversible changes. Then what? What are you going to do, parents? What are you going to do when your children come up to you 5 years later or 10 years later and say, Mommy, Daddy, why did you listen to me? I was only a child.
Now, obviously, everything you're saying about kids is totally correct. This is the point we've been making for many years now, and we're going to start hearing a lot more stories like the one he talks about there. Hopefully, because those are the stories with the happy endings, the ones where the parents pull back from the trans path before it's too late, before they start the drugs and surgeries, and then they discover that, what do you know, their gender confused daughter is actually not even confused at all. She's just really a tomboy who likes to play sports and whatever else, and that's fine. This has always been our point, and this has always also been the irony, or at least something that might be mistaken for irony, which is that those of us on the quote-unquote conservative side of this issue actually have a much more, to use the left's phrase here, expansive. We have a much more, if you would like to say, gender expansive view than the other side, because we are the ones who will say that being a girl or being a boy doesn't put you in a tiny box where there's only one set of behaviors, one set of interests, one set of hobbies, one mode of being that is accepted. You know, we're the ones saying there's a lot of different ways to be a girl. There's a lot of different ways to be a boy. Some girls like girly stuff. Many girls do, probably most. But some girls aren't into the dolls and the pink and all that, and they prefer to go out and play baseball and whatever, and that's all fine. Some girls are kind of a mix of the two. My 11-year-old daughter is into ballet. She loves to bake, very girly in most ways, but every time I go outside to play football with my boys, she comes running out and wants to play too. And actually, she's got pretty good hands. She makes some impressive catches, I have to say. And all that is fine. You know, she's a girl who likes ballet, and she also likes to play football with us. Great. The point is that my wife and I don't look at that and then break out the decoder ring to try and figure out if that makes her a girl or a boy or maybe non-binary. No, there's nothing to even, it's not confusing. There's no equation here. There's no calculus. She's a girl, but she's a girl who has interests and has a certain personality, and that's fine. That's more than fine. I think it's great. It's who she is. It's what makes her unique and interesting. And this is also, by the way, yet more evidence which is something that every parent knows, or every parent should know, that kids will tend to develop interests and a sense of identity based, at least in large part, on how the parents lead them. So the real reason that my daughter wants to come out and play football with us is that I'm playing, and I love football, and she wants to be a part of that because I'm her dad. And that's obvious. But what does that say about kids who develop an interest in being trans? Well, often that's the child trying to participate in something that the parent is interested in, which is all the gender nonsense. So it's a reflection of the parent. But in any case, back to the point, that this is the happy ending that we'll start seeing, I think, for a lot of kids. And their parents will pull back from the gender craziness just in time before any physical harm has been done, and the children will be allowed to just be boys and girls who have different interests and different personalities, and that's it. Now, of course, the tragedy is that it won't always be a happy ending. There will also be many sad endings, tragic endings, where the parents pull back after the threshold has been crossed, after they've charged past the Rubicon, and now their children will have to deal with the lasting effects, the permanent effects, forever. That's the really sad and infuriating part. And it's also why simply rolling back gender ideology is not enough. I mean, that's the start. That's the start, is to roll it back, ban these Frankenstein procedures, ban this abuse of kids. All of that needs to happen first, but then there have to be punishments. Justice has to be done to those who push this and cause this harm to children, because this is not a victimless crime, clearly. And even after, that's the thing. We will, I think, sooner than later, live in a country where a lot of this stuff as a culture is behind us, especially as it pertains to kids. I think we will sooner than later live in a country where this stuff is just not happening to kids anymore, because it's a losing argument. It's losing badly. It's not sustainable, as I've been saying now for months. But the sad truth is that we might reach a point as a culture where we can say, okay, well, that's behind us now, and it'll become a bizarre, dark period in the history books that years from now people will read about, and they'll be totally baffled by it. They won't understand. And those of us who lived through it still don't quite understand how this happened. I mean, we could only have theories about how society lost its mind to this extent, that it started doing this to kids. But even when we reach a point, I think in the not too distant future, where this stuff is behind us as a culture, there are a lot of people who, for them, it's never really going to be behind them. They're going to have to live with it forever. They're not going to have the option of just closing that chapter in the book and saying, well, that's over, because things have been done to them that they're going to have to live with physically, emotionally, spiritually, forever. And that's also why we can't just move on. There have to be punishments. People have to be punished for this. One more thought about this. I was thinking about recently, going back to this example of my daughter and how she'll participate in some of the more masculine things that I do and that her brothers do. I've often wondered if this is one of the reasons why gender dysphoria, so-called, is more common in girls than boys. And there are, as you know, it has much more often been girls who have fallen into this. Especially in adolescence. And there are a lot of theories to explain that dynamic. I've offered different theories through the years, and I think that all the theories are true to some extent, but it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of answer. And there are many different answers, I think. And there's an element of the issue that I've never heard anyone discuss before, or if they have, I haven't heard it. And that is that in my experience, and this is entirely anecdotal, I'll admit, but in my experience, girls are much more likely to want to participate in, stereotypically masculine things like football, like whatever else, and to adopt some stereotypically masculine interests than boys are to do the opposite, to adopt feminine interests and to want to participate in stereotypically feminine things. And it's much more common for girls, for it to go that way with girls, but not necessarily in the reverse for boys. And that's not because all these girls are tomboys. My daughter is not. As I said, she's a very girly girl in almost every imaginable way, but she likes to go out and play football and that sort of thing. She'll go out in the woods with us and shoot pellet guns. Like, she likes to do that kind of stuff. And this seems to be common for girls. Almost any dad of girls that I've talked to will say something similar. And boys, again, in my experience, aren't usually like that in the reverse. My sons like all the typically boyish stuff. They don't mix in any girly stuff at all. They're not interested at all in any of that. They're not going to go play with dolls occasionally or express any interest in ballet or what have you. So it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare to find a boy who, say, loves baseball and monster trucks and all that, but then also is kind of interested in figure skating. That doesn't happen very often. Girls seem much more likely to mix in some of the masculine interests than boys are to mix in some of the feminine interests. And I think the reason for that is that girls are more social, they're more communal by nature. So they're much more likely to become interested in the things that the people around them and close to them are interested in, for the sake of socializing and bonding with those people. Like, the fact that someone close to them loves something makes them love it too. And not just as a put on, not as a show, but they actually are interested in it. I remember once, for instance, being over at my in-laws, and they're big hockey fans, and they were watching hockey. And my wife was watching it too and getting really, really into it. Like, really into it, really emotionally invested in this hockey match. And we never watch hockey at home. We're not hockey fans at all. Never watched it one time. No interest. But for a couple of hours on that particular day, my wife was truly invested in it, truly interested, because her family was, and it was a communal experience. Now, on the other hand, I'm not interested in hockey, so I just went off and did my own thing because I don't care. I'm not going to suddenly care about it because other people do. I think that's how men usually are. We like what we like. We're interested in what we're interested in. It doesn't matter who else shares that interest or wants to participate in it. It doesn't really matter to us. And I think this could partly explain why girls are more likely to exhibit, in these kinds of moments, these so-called masculine tendencies, which are then misinterpreted or have been misinterpreted by crazy people and abusive people to be a symptom of gender dysphoria and a sign that the girl is transgender or whatever. Boys are less likely to exhibit those kinds of signs, because they tend to stick with what they like, and they're less prone to change or adapt for the sake of being communal or, bonding with people or what have you. Which just adds to the tragedy, because that is a positive sort of attribute of being a girl and being a woman. This wanting to be communal with other people and adapting their interests, that's a good thing. It's a positive thing. But it's been twisted against them by these gender ideologues. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.